Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we've got another pretty stormy period of weather overnight tonight. We're seeing another vicious low moving up from the southwest. We're already seeing the heavy rain associated with it sweeping northwards, and even some heavy thundery rain across parts of eastern and southern England. We are going to see the winds really pick up overnight, peaking through the early hours of the morning, potentially 60-70 mile per hour gusts, and we have warnings in force for that. As we'll see on the latest UKV, things are actually going to settle down for a time later this week and could actually turn pretty warm in the south. We could be seeing quite a large area of high teens, if not 20 degrees through sort of Thursday, Friday, maybe even into the weekend. But as we have alluded to over the past few videos, the longer term does look like we're going to reverse from pretty warm, dry conditions to pretty cold conditions in the matter of around 24 hours or so in around 7 days time. Quite a big switch looks likely as the high pressure that's trying to build up from the south, giving us warmer dry conditions, does veer further westwards and northwards, and it allows northerly or northwesterly flows to come in to give us generally chilly below average air masses. Now, the one positive is it still is looking likely to be dry, but it will be quite a bit colder. Temperatures could struggle to get into the double digits with frost as well overnight. We'll have a look at that in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in description. Now, as I said, if we start on the live radar, you can see the big area of rain that's sweeping northwards at the moment. Some very heavy, persistent rainfall. We have had warnings in force for this. And you can see further southwards, it's briefly drier, but around the centre of the low, across southwest England, we are seeing some heavy, thundery rain developing on the eastern edge. There is a little bit of cape around this evening, so this area of thunderstorm activity coming out of northern France could stay active across parts of southern and eastern England. That's going to be one to keep an eye on through this evening. Could be very lively as that moves in. Now, if you look at the temperatures, you can see it is pretty mild further south and eastwards. You can see very warm still across parts of Europe. As we saw that hotter plume through the weekend, still just about holding on. Cooler out to our west, and there's that collision across the British Isles, which is causing this low to really spin up. Now, if you look at the weather warnings, you can see at the moment we've got a few warnings issued. We've got a rain warning issued for eastern Northern Ireland from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. Again, looking at 25 to 30 millimetres where the low pivots. We could see that rain persist for longer periods of time. And then we've got wind warnings issued across the far south coast from 9 p.m. until 9 a.m. And you can see the peak winds have been strengthened by around 5 miles per hour, looking at 45 to 55 miles per hour just inland, maybe more around the 65 mile per hour for exposed coasts. And then for much of southwest England, we've got another warning again, increasing those wind speeds to 45 to 55 miles per hour widely, maybe 60 to 65 along some coasts, and a few locations could just about get to 75 miles per hour. Into tomorrow, we've still got those warnings, but we've got other warnings now issued from much of the coastal area of Wales and northwest England from 1 a.m. until 3 p.m. Again, very similar winds, around 50 miles per hour widely, up to 60 or 65. And then we've got this widespread rain warning that is issued. Starts at 1 a.m, so basically tonight through to 6 p.m. tomorrow. And again, we're looking at 20 to 40 millimetres widely, 50 to 60 millimetres. So a pretty lively system coming in at the moment, and it's still going to cause issues all the way through to tomorrow afternoon. Now, do have a look at the latest UKV. You can see that rain moving northwards at the moment. And of course, this evening, we could see those thundery areas of rain develop in the southeast, especially over the next couple of hours before eventually sweeping northwards. We could see some thunder activity across parts of the Midlands there. Doesn't look intense or anything too ridiculous, but could be pretty heavy and could be disruptive after seeing persistent rain earlier on in the day. Now, all that rain will continue to spiral northwards and kind of combine into a big area of rain for Scotland, and it could be really quite horrible there through the early hours of the morning. And then as we head into Tuesday afternoon, we see that rain eventually clearing away, and we see a pretty chilly northwesterly wind come in for a time. But fortunately, it will bring dry conditions and sunnier conditions, so it will actually be pretty pleasant in terms of sunshine and lack of rain through tomorrow afternoon. As we head into Wednesday, though, another area of rain moving in for all areas through the afternoon, giving plenty more persistent rainfall and lingering further northwards and westwards as well. And then eventually into Thursday, though, things turning drier. This is where the high pressure is starting to push in, especially for southern areas. We could see 20 degrees with that high pressure build. You can see some rains trying to push in, but it really only skirting Scotland and Northern Ireland there, as we have the higher pressure further southwards. And you see all the way into 60, eventually low pressure could break through, but still remaining fairly settled in the south. You see higher pressure trying to hold on. I do think it's going to be a north-south split. The north not quite getting that high pressure in, so yes, seeing some drier conditions, but still seeing a substantial risk of rain at times, whereas the south does look pretty dry from Thursday through to Sunday. And you see the upper air temperatures are going to be fairly warm, around 10-degree mark, which is a good 5 to 10 degrees above average for the time of year. Now, if it was to persist for longer, bit high pressure build in more, we could even get into the low 20s in many areas. But since it's only lasting a few days and only just nudging in, still keeping cooler air further northwards, we're likely just about to touch 20 degrees. Now, if you look at the wind gusts, though, you can see through this evening, winds are really going to pick up across the south coast, looking at widely 60 miles per hour, maybe as much as 70 or 80 miles per hour, and you can see that continuing through all areas through tomorrow morning, and lasting even into the afternoon, still gusty around 40 to 50 miles per hour. So even though it does turn drier tomorrow afternoon, it is going to remain fairly blustery. And then for the rest of the week, there will be some gusty periods, but the winds won't be too strong at all. You can see this afternoon temperatures back around the mid-teens, hovering slightly above and slightly below that. Further westwards, pretty chilly indeed across the Republic of Ireland, as we are seeing colder air wrap around the low. Into tomorrow afternoon, even though it is turning drier, it's going to be a lot chillier. Temperatures maybe 10 to 12 degrees at best. And then as we veer into Wednesday, temperatures slightly higher, maybe 12, 13 degrees, maybe up to 14 or 15 at best. But look at Thursday, massive increase as we see that high pressure build in widely around that 17 to 19 degree mark. And finally into Friday, still 17 to 19 degrees further southwards, could even just about nudge at 20 degrees somewhere around London. So looking pretty decent towards the end of this working week. Just unfortunately, it's not going to be everywhere. Further north, it's not as likely to see these warmer, dry conditions, and it's not going to last too long. A couple of days after this, through the weekend, the start of the following week, could be turning much chillier as we see northerly airflows arrive. Now, if you look at the latest GFS, which has just come out, we'll be able to see those northerly airflows starting to arrive in around a week's time. You can see the higher pressure is trying to build in later this week and is fairly successful through towards Saturday. But then look at the wind direction, veers to a northwesterly by next Monday, and it could actually go straight northerly more in the longer term. And look at that, pretty chilly, cold northerly winds through the middle to second half of the month. Pretty potent northerly wind there as well, with some with the remnants of the really cold Arctic air getting pushed our way. You see this stream of very cold air heading towards northern Europe, and just generally see as a pretty cold feel indeed. If we do zoom in and have a look at the 2 meter temperatures, I know this is 384 hours, but you can see not getting much above 10 or 11 degrees for the last week of April is very poor indeed. Not guaranteed to come off, but I must say there is pretty strong support now for these colder air masses to push in through the second half of the month. Now, if you compare to the GM, it's not exactly the same, but it's broadly similar. High pressure building in, eventually northwesterlies and northerly flows continuing all the way to the end of the run here. And you can just see it's all because we've got this mid-Atlantic ridge just allowing lows to slide in from the northwest to southeast. You can see this cold pool of air to our north just continues to move in dominating especially further northwards and eastwards, but kind of pretty widespread as well. You see this just from all these blues around to our north and our east, just keeping us pretty cold after a very warm end to this week. You see that cold air comes in very quickly and stays around all the way to day 10 here. And if compared to the eastern blue the midnight run, again high pressure building in, but then eventually low pressure arrives, again coming in from the north or the northwest, keeping us pretty chilly and cold, especially early next week. Could see some temporary milder air masses, but considering the positioning of the mid-Atlantic ridge, I wouldn't be surprised to see another northwesterly or northerly little burst there in the following days. Now, to finish, we can see on the latest Ensemble, this 12 o'clock run hasn't come out, unfortunately. You can see slightly colder air mass coming in tomorrow on the back edge of the low, but then it springs up massively through Thursday to Saturday, where the upper air temperatures are peaking around 10 degrees, which is 10 degrees above average, where the upper air temperatures generally should be around the freezing mark. So it's actually going to be very warm in terms of those upper air temperatures, but only lasting around 2 or 3 days, unfortunately. Very dry, so it's actually going to be really pleasant, proper spring or even early summer type feeling out there for a few days. However, look at that temperature drop in around 6 or 7 days time through Sunday, Monday next week. Temperatures go from 10 degrees at 850 HPA down to around -5, which is around 5 degrees below average. A 15-degree temperature drop, turning pretty chilly indeed. Now that lasts for a couple of days, and then we do see the ensembles return to average, but still seeing quite a few colder runs. I do think the most likely pattern is for us to kind of oscillate around average and below average, generally with chillier north or northwesterly airflows. It's impossible at this time frame to say exactly how it will evolve, exact time frames of the arrival of different air masses. But from the looks of the operational runs that we just saw, they're all got northwesterly or northerly blast coming in, intermittent blast with some slightly milder air masses mixed in there. So I think that is the most likely scenario, keeping us around average or below average. And of course, with that being consistent, it won't allow those temperatures to rise at all and will keep us pretty chilly. Now, the one positive is that it will remain still fairly dry. There is precipitation appearing because it is more low pressure dominated, but with colder, drier air masses with low dew points, we are likely to see less showers. And although showers will be around, it won't be anywhere near as unsettled as a low pressure dominated southwesterly or even flat westerly. So that is the only positive I can really see from this sort of scenario. The other positive, perhaps you could argue, is that it's not guaranteed at this stage. There could still be some changes, but it is looking like the most likely scenario at the moment. You can see big rise later this week, and then a big drop from around 20 degrees through Friday, down to around 9 till 11 come Monday. Slowly rising towards the mid-teens beyond that, but still remaining fairly chilly. And finally, if we compare to the ECMWF midnight run, it is exactly the same, bar from perhaps longer term, even more of a bias towards below average patterns, going from a well above average to a well below average pattern in the space of a couple of days. So very warm to very cold. I wouldn't say very cold, but cold, especially for the time of year, with chilly conditions, frost potentially, and even some runs here showing us getting close to the -10, which would be very cold indeed. So we'll have to see exactly how this does play out. But for the time being, it's looking like pretty pleasant latter part of this week, and then all reversing as we head into next working week with colder, chillier air masses returning from the north and the northwest. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.